Hello there guys, welcome to the channel, Talking with J-Spring. On today's video, I'm giving you my official ranking of the Fast and Furious franchise. Obviously, I'm going to add Hobbs and Shaw in there as well, being a Fast and Furious movie. So all 9 movies ranked from the worst to the best. Let's get straight into it. Coming in at number 9, it is Tokyo Drift. I absolutely love the Tokyo setting and the location. It really adds a culture to the movie which is enjoyable, as well as the Yakuza name really adds a threat to the story, as well as the lead character, which can be quite enjoyable, as well as the unique style of racing as well. We get drifting obviously further on in the franchise as well, but this is obviously drifting racing, which makes it unique and more enjoyable. But the lacking side of this movie really lacks when it comes to the dialogue. We get some really boring dialogue which makes conversations just not interesting. Rememberable action, there really isn't any unique action in there that I can recall that's actually really great. But alongside that, we have an actor named Lucas Black playing as Sean. He isn't believable as the character really because he doesn't look 17, which really makes it hard to get into the movie straight away. But not only that, I've not really seen him much as an actor. I think if they'd have chose someone more younger, had a lot more potential, a lot more great acting, I think that would have suited the movie a lot more better. But this movie also lacks in areas where it pushes other people down our throats, just like the female lead character. I found her really uninteresting, but then it also pushed obviously the Yakuza uncle out of the way, which made him uninteresting and falls flat as a threat. He's supposed to be this big Yakuza guy, but it really didn't feel like that through the movie. This movie, in my opinion, just failed with its direction. What they tried to achieve, they didn't achieve, and it does have some entertaining value in there with technical value as well. At number 8, we have Too Fast, Too Furious with a 6.8 out of 10 from me. The best thing about this movie for sure is Roman Pierce. The introduction of him, I really enjoyed it. He's a fun guy, has a lot of humour which adds for this movie and the rest of the franchise. But what this offers in this movie compared to the rest of the franchises, he's a sort of alpha type figure in this movie which we don't really see for the rest of the franchise. He really is obviously cocky, really intimidating and strong, and really is a good side character to Paul Walker. Obviously Dom not being in this movie, Vin Diesel, someone had to fill them boots, and I feel like they've done a good job with Roman Pierce. This movie has a decent villain, some cool editing, and an awesome story between two main characters, obviously being Brian and Roman, which really stands out in this franchise and also offers a lot for the story later on as we go along. But what this movie does lack is obviously taking out all the characters which we had from the first movie. We sort of got to care for them and know them, and they just took them all out suddenly, which really made this movie lack in some aspect, as well as the terrible script in this movie which is repetitive and leads to a lot of character problems. At number 7, we have Fast and Furious, the 4th movie of the franchise. I gave this a 7.3 out of 10. This was the movie that learned from the errors of the previous 2 movies, of course. This movie has much better writing and dialogue for sure. The action takes a massive upstep in my opinion. The tone of the movie is executed perfectly, and the ending of the movie as well actually sets up for the next movie, which the previous 2 movies didn't really do. But the best thing about this movie is bringing back the original cast. You get Dom, you get Letty, you get Brian, you get Mia, they're all there, and even introducing some new characters into this, like Giselle, as well as the villain Phoenix. There are problems with this movie when it comes to the lead villain Braga. I really didn't find him interesting. He didn't really cause a threat throughout the movie. He was just a money man that used his men to his advantage. Now in some movies this would be quite cool, but being this was a reboot, they needed a lead villain that really took it, and I think Phoenix took that spot even though he's supposed to be the side villain. There was also the problem how Brian become a cop again, even after letting Dom go in the first movie. It sort of left questions over that, and the less racing compared to the other movies we've seen previous. At number 6, we have The Fate of the Furious, the 8th movie of the franchise. I gave this a 8 out of 10. Now this movie massively upgrades when it comes to the previous 3 movies mentioned. We get them top fighting scenes when it comes to hand-to-hand combat. We get an awesome villain in Charlize Theron's, obviously Cypher. She was a great villain who was menacing and vindictive. Her sidekick Rhodes adding a threat to the movie, and also helped out Charlize Theron's Cypher character, which they really just become a good duo through the movie. The shocking reveals in this movie were executed well, and the funny relationship between Hobbs and Shaw, setting up their movie as well in this movie, was absolutely great. We get the iconic plane scene with Statham kicking ass and saving the baby. We also get Owen Shaw returning to the movie, which was great, as well as that prison fight scene. Absolutely epic, that fight scene. But the best thing about this movie is Dom going rogue, of course. Absolutely awesome storyline, and in my opinion, one of Vin Diesel's best performances on the screen. Really isn't one of my favourites, simply because there's no Paul Walker. Now, it sounds crazy, I know, obviously he passed away, and maybe they could have just done a voiceover or something just to really get him involved in the movie, because he's such a key character and I just really miss him. I know they mentioned him, and naming the baby after obviously Brian really was a nice touch, I really do admit. But apart from that, the pacing in the second half of the movie really is questionable. It really causes an issue. At number 5, I got Furious 7. Obviously, I gave this an 8 out of 10 as well. I love this movie for what it did for Paul Walker and Brian as a character, because Brian is a special character for this franchise and the story. As well as massive credit to Cody Walker, who actually stepped in for his brother in this movie. We get additions like Tony Jaa in this movie, who is a professional martial artist. Ronda Rousey, obviously UFC fighter, really adds some great fighting elements through the movie. Brian was a big part of the fighting sequences in this movie as well. Really gets a lot of hand-to-hand combats, especially with Tony Jaa. Some really good moments. Kurt Russell being introduced as Mr. Nobody was a great choice. Really enjoyable, some great humour and great relationships with the crew. The crew are all excellent in this, of course, and we get the introduction of Ramsey as well. Another good character which really gives Roman and Tej someone to flirt with, fight over and banter about, which really adds more humour. Jason Statham is introduced into this movie, of course, being a big threat, obviously, to the crew, to everybody in this movie. He's badass and really is a good villain in this movie. The best part about this movie is Paul Walker's send-off, obviously, with the music chosen for it, the video package, everybody's, obviously, goodbyes in that movie, the way they do it was absolutely perfection. The movie's issues are small, but they do affect it, and the fact of this is Dwayne Johnson isn't in the movie that much. He's a key character, loved character, who impacted the franchise and the movies a lot when he came in through Fast 5. It's completely insane. That is one of the things that really bugged me, as well as the sudden, obviously, tragic death of Paul, really causing a lot of issues for, obviously, the storyline to be flooded to try and make it more entertaining and stuff. I get which way they went, but it really flooded the storyline with a lot of plot line, obviously a lot of plot holes, and too many plots in general. It's completely jumbled. If you think of the story, you have Hun's death, you have Statham's revenge, you have God's Eye, you have seen, obviously, Brian sent off properly, and there's just so much more to add to that story. At number 4, don't worry, there's no spoilers, and this is Hobbs and Shaw. Hobbs and Shaw is the newest addition to the franchise. David Leitch doing an amazing job with this movie, certainly achieving its aim of being a fun and entertaining movie which you can kick your feet back and just sit up and enjoy the movie. I think the key to this is Statham and Hobbs' relationship, of course, the bickering, the swearing, the insulting each other, and even going on to wanting to kill each other in the movie. It really is some great humour in there with that because of this situation they're in, and it really is great. Slow motion effects really add that Fast and Furious feel to the movie with them car chases. They really do a good job with that. Technically, this is the best movie when it comes to the cinematography, the lighting, the location, the editing. It really is great. What you'd expect for a 2019 movie. I love the fact the story is used well too, introducing these characters' backstories, which we've never really seen throughout the franchise. That's why I think they've done this movie, to really develop the characters, make us love them more than we already do, which is crazy, and I really did enjoy it. Also, adding emotion to them stories, even for Shaw, was really great and genius idea as well. Idris Elba comes into this movie as a top villain, really enjoyable, one of the best villains in the franchise for sure. Not only that, this villain has a story too, which you can understand, relate to, and really see why he's doing what he's doing, which is great. When it comes to villains with stories, we rarely get any in the Fast and Furious franchise, and if we do, it's either they're not interesting or the story's just very basic. The addition of Roman Reigns, Cliff Curtis, Helen Mirren, and 2 other new cameos, which I'm not going to spoil for you, really add great additions and humour to the movie. Vanessa Kirby as Hattie was absolutely great through this movie, just as good, in my opinion, as Statham and Johnson. This movie also added an ending which leaves it open for a sequel, which I really am excited for. There is problems with this movie, being that the action, sometimes it's really great, but then sometimes it's just a bit too much. We need a little bit of space to breathe, and the script as well, I feel like it can be improved, especially with the top performances that are being delivered in here from the actors and the cast. Really, they're giving top performances with a mediocre script. Just goes to show their talent. At number 3, we have Fast and Furious 6. This movie is a massive upstep in my opinion, that much that I don't have any faults with this movie. It sticks to the plan of being thoroughly entertaining. It has that over-the-top action and really has a storyline which is really continued from the previous movies with characters that we've really got attached to. It also introduces a much better villain than Braga in Owen Shaw, played by Luke Evans, a top actor. Not only is he a top actor, he has a top performance in this movie, delivering a smart, intimidating and strong villain for the franchise. This movie has much better stunts in my opinion. The pacing is really used well throughout the movie. This movie we get deaths, we get new character relationships, and also we get characters who actually portray people. This even has Letty coming back to the screen, a character which really hasn't flourished a lot throughout the franchise, obviously getting killed off in Fast and Furious, the 4th movie, and she comes back and her character's shown a lot more respect and flourishes really well in this movie. This is obviously a revival that's been questioned by many people, but since she's been back, I think it's definitely paid off. This movie has everything you need to just sit back and enjoy, especially with that mind-blowing end credit scene with Statham killing Han. At number 2, we have The Fast and the Furious, the first movie of the franchise. This movie started the franchise in an absolutely awesome way. At the time of the early 2000s, of course, the technology wasn't as advanced as it is now, so we have to give massive credit to that. Rob Cohen done an awesome job directing this movie. Really, we get the awesome cars, we get the chases, we get the races that we want. But what is really key for this movie is the character building, the relationships that are built throughout this movie. That is what really is good when it comes to the direction of this movie, especially when it comes to Brian and Dom's relationship, which is really the icing on the cake for the movie, because they're two polar opposites people who really end up becoming brothers. Brian being the main character of the movie, holding the movie together because he's the one that's got to make all the decisions. Whether it's him going after Mia, having problems with Vince, earning their trust just to break it, and also letting Dom go at the end. This has another cool villain in there as well, being called Johnny. I really enjoyed him. Maybe not as good as obviously Idris Elba's villain, but really still has a good element to the movie. Now, considering this is over the last movie, which had no bad points, and this has one, being that obviously the character of Leon was a bit bland for me, really that's the only bad point, just goes to show how great this movie is. This movie I prefer to Fast 6 because this movie was the first movie. This introduced all these characters, the story, everything, and sometimes I think it's harder to start something than to continue something. It can be vice versa, but really sometimes starting something, especially when it comes to a franchise, really deserves a lot of respect, especially a movie as well as a franchise that's been heavily criticised. This movie being criticised as a copy of Point Break, of course. I think they've done a great job. At number 1, the best Fast and Furious movie, in my opinion, is Fast 5. Now, this is a movie which caught everyone's hearts and eyes, really got them involved into this franchise and interested, and really, I can't complain about anything when it comes to this movie and what it does. I've got no bad points. It sets up an aim of being an awesome, intense, action-packed heist movie, and it achieves that and more. Starting with an introduction of a character which is one of the biggest movie stars ever in Dwayne Johnson as Hobbs. They've done an incredible job with that. Dwayne Johnson actually being the villain of this movie, if you really think about it, being the guy who has to take down Dom and his crew because the cops and stuff really can't get to him. In this movie we get what all the other movies offer. We get the fast cars, we get the hot chicks, awesome locations, great comedy, great dialogue, great writing as well. And then to top all that we get great cinematography, great editing and visuals as well. We also get another interesting addition to the franchise with a new character named Elena, which is really crucial to the storyline of this movie as well as the rest of the franchise. You've got all the crew in there which are really enjoyable. The only one that isn't there is Letty, but for a reason, of course. Even Vince comes back in this movie, which is a great addition because I absolutely love that character. You get Mia finding that she's pregnant with Brian's baby, which really brings Mia, Dom and Brian all closer together as a family. crucial thing about this movie is the rivalry between Dom and Hobbs. You really get a lot of intense stuff when it comes to these two because of their class acting, but not only that, the storyline really adds to that as well. The fact that Hobbs purely hates Dom because he can get away from the cops, he can get away from him even, and even when he lets Hobbs get close to him, it's for a reason. He wants him to get close, and he's just purely outsmarting him every time. But oh my god, the fight scene is one of my favourite action scenes of all time. These two going at it, two big, muscly men, just completely punching and pounding each other. You can feel every single punch. It is so intense. I really think it's special. I just find this story a true story with love, anger, respect, pain, everything that you need in a movie. Everything you want in an action movie, of course. Truly, this is my favourite movie in the Fast and Furious franchise, and I'd even go to say this is one of my favourite action movies in the last decade. So guys, that is my ranking for the Fast and the Furious franchise. Don't forget to let me know your rankings down below in that comment section. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Hobbs and Shaw as well. Don't forget to check out the review for that. The link will be in the description, annotation at the end of the video, and a card above my head. You can check out the Hobbs and Shaw review. Don't worry, it's non-spoiler, so if you haven't seen the movie, you will not be spoiled, of course. If you enjoyed this video, guys, if you simply did, smash that thumbs up button. It helps the video, gets it around for everybody else to enjoy, and lets me know you're enjoying the content I'm giving you, and to give you more. And if you're new here, consider subscribing and hitting that bell for much more movies and TV series content. We don't just rank videos from the worst to the best, we also review movies and TV series as well as react to trailers. There's a bunch of stuff coming, a bunch of stuff on the channel which I'm sure you guys ain't going to want to miss, just like the Journey to Hobbs and Shaw, where we reviewed all the Fast and Furious franchise as well as Hobbs and Shaw, and then we just ranked them all. So don't forget to check out that playlist, and annotation will be at the end of the video for sure as well. So stay tuned guys on the channel. I've been me, you've been you, and I'll see you next time guys on Talking with Jay Springett.